Hey guys, this is Nick Bratton of Bratton Sports Performance. Today we're going to go through some foam rolling exercises. And again, we're going to kind of focus on exercises or foam rolling drills that focus on our hips and our low back. That tends to be an area that we see a lot of issues with, whether it's pain or discomfort or just a lack of proper function. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to focus on foam rolling and even using a lacrosse ball on our glute max and our glute med. Okay, and so for you guys who aren't really aware of what we're talking about, I'm going to point this out for you here on Coach Catherine. When we get set up, if you guys were to palpate or to feel on the back side of your hip, you can feel your hip bone. Okay, so that hip bone that actually goes across the back side of your lower back. So basically right below that is going to be our glute max, and that's going to cover the largest part of the back side of our hip. Directly out to the side of that, before we get right over our hip bone or before we get over the head of our femur, you're going to feel your glute med. So these are the two muscles that we're going to focus on primarily today. Now, these muscles are very active within hip extension and within any type of locomotive movement, and so this is something that we're constantly using that we don't allow to shut off very often, and so this is why we get a lot of the issues back there. So I'm going to have Coach Catherine get set up for me. All we're going to do is we're going to start out on the foam roller. Now, the foam roller is typically the best implement to begin with, just because it covers such a large surface area. We also use the lacrosse ball. The problem is the lacrosse ball has such a fine point that you're applying pressure with, it tends to be a little more uncomfortable. So when we get set up, we're going to get set up over the foam roller, just like so. Now, if we're going to roll out the left hip, we're actually going to put our left ankle on our right knee. Now, all this does is it allows us to get that glute max in a stretched position, so we're able to get a little bit deeper within the muscle. We're going to lift the right hip up so that the left hip is directly on the foam roller, and all we're going to do is roll forward and backward, roll up and down over that glute max. Now, anytime we go through foam rolling, we want to go at a nice slow pace as we go through it. We also want to make sure that we're avoiding any type of bony processes. We don't want to roll over the bone. We don't want to roll over anything that is too uncomfortable because it is a hard surface. Now, as we go through the foam rolling, another thing to note is if you find an area that tends to be a little more tender or is a little more uncomfortable, that's a good time to sit on that area for 20 to 30 seconds, allow that to kind of loosen up, and then slowly roll back over it. Now, as we go through it, you'll notice that as Catherine's going, she's kind of shifting her weight, she's moving her hips side to side, back and forth. Again, we want to cover the entirety of that muscle as we go through it. So we started out with the foam roller. Now we're going to move to the lacrosse ball. Again, we're going to set up in the same position, but this time that surface area is much smaller, and so we're going to be able to get a little bit deeper within the muscle. Now, this is not something that I would really recommend on your first day of rolling. This usually takes a little more time to work into. But like I said, again, we're going to get a little bit deeper within the muscle. We can kind of pinpoint some areas a little bit better. So foam rolling and using a lacrosse ball is a great way to begin to prep the muscle, both before exercise, but also as part of a cool down routine or even a recovery routine. And so it's a good way to prep the muscle before we go into any type of stretching, mobility, flexibility exercises. So go ahead, implement this exercise, this foam rolling drill into your program. Roll out for about 30-45 seconds at a time. Hit both sides before we go into your stretches, and then let us know how it goes. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you.